Welcome back to Talk. I'm Mike Graham. This is, of course, Morning Glory. Peter Bleksley's here with me. Peter, we've got a few migrant stories to sort of get across this morning, haven't we? The Times starts with, on the front page, migrants will be stuck in hotels for 3 years because of an asylum backlog. We were told by the Tory party they were moving them out of hotels, but clearly, as more and more of them arrive, that's absolutely not happening. Meanwhile, we're hearing from Robert Jenrick that the Home Office and others in the civil service are deliberately withholding information on criminal activity committed by people who have come here as migrants.
Yeah, without a doubt. And particularly now, Jenrick has committed to bringing in legislation that will force the government to declare the identities, nationalities of migrants that come into the UK and commit crime. Well, that's the very least we
Well, you would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, we don't know who most of these people are as they come in. We hand them... Well, we saw a story yesterday which said that something like 1,300 of the last year's influx were people claiming to be children who were not children, people who were in their 20s and 30s claiming to be under 18.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the data has proven in Denmark and the US, where they have compiled it, they have published it, and for them, the most notable countries where people that commit crime come from are Kuwait, Tunisia, Lebanon and Somalia. And in Denmark, those people from those countries are committing crime at 8 times the rate that Danish people are. So, 8 times more likely to be a criminal.
And when is this kind of information going to filter through to the sort of so-called liberal elite establishment who constantly appear on shows like Question Time and say, but they're all running away from something terrible and we should welcome them with open arms because we need immigration? Well, we don't need criminal immigration, thanks very much, do we?
We most certainly don't, with our prisons full, our police barely functioning in many regards, and our streets becoming ever more lawless. We certainly don't need to import more crime. We've got enough already here that we can't actually deal with properly.
Well, I mean, this brings me, I'm afraid, and I don't want to be too self-indulgent here, but because you're here and you're a proper police officer, as you used to be, I had my phone stolen last week, right, as you probably know. Most people know about it. In fact, people now tell me to stop boring them with the story. But, on the moment that it happened, there was a police van literally next to me on the other side of the road. I went over to talk to the guy, and he apologised, and very nice bloke. He said, I'm terribly sorry this has happened. It's happening an awful lot. He then confessed to me that he'd had his own phone stolen while he was in uniform, standing around at some other part of London. And, the process that then followed was that, because I wrote a piece of the Telegraph, they suddenly got a bit interested, the police, and they started sending me emails and asking me questions about, do you know which direction the assailant was travelling in? And I'm like, well, yeah. And in fact, so did the guy who spoke to me, who wouldn't chase after him. He was going east on Jamaica Road towards the Rotherhithe Tunnel. I told you that I'd tracked him to Deptford. I told you I'd tracked him to Goldsmiths College. They weren't interested.
What about the tens and tens of thousands of people that do not have a public profile like you, Mike, and also get their phone stolen and get no kind of service
got nothing
whatsoever? No. When will the British police wake up and realise that they have to completely restructure, completely reprioritise and get out on the streets and reclaim them? Reinvent the policing wheel and get patrolling back on our streets. It's what the public want. It reassures the public, but of course, all those highly educated people at universities that occupy police departments in universities, will tell you that patrolling is actually ineffective. You can't really measure it. Complete and utter.
Also a load of old cobblers, yeah. Exactly right, because if there had been a copper there and he could have grabbed the guy around the neck as he was trying to fly off on his moped, that might have discouraged him from doing it again.
Exactly.
But everybody I talk to, from cab drivers to bus drivers to people just at random who come up to me and say, oh, I heard about you on your phone, they all have had an experience that's similar to mine, or they know someone who's had their phone nicked. I did a bit of research for the Telegraph piece. 1,000 phones a week were stolen last year, and this year they're expected to be double that. So we're talking like an awful lot of people being victims of crime. And as I said, fortunately for me, there was no violence involved. He didn't try and stab me, he didn't punch me, nothing happened. I was fine, and I'm quite grateful for that. But at the end of the day, the police have got to take back the streets, because the streets are out of control. They're out of control.
They completely are. You walk down any high street and you will see an absence of policing.
I went out the other day, right, just the other side of London Bridge Station onto Tooley Street, and I'm sorry if you're not in London, you don't know where that is, and there was a group of kids on bikes doing wheelies, getting in people's way, pushing people over. I mean, I didn't give a toss, right? The teenage kids are about 13 or 14. I thought, should I go over there and just get involved? And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to, because if I do, I might get stabbed for my trouble.
Please don't. But you know what? If we're going to get police back onto the streets to patrol and to deal with the hoodlums that you just spoke about, they are going to need public support.
Yes.
Public support to be robust.
Right.
Public support to deal properly with crime. And you know what? Policing is often a very ugly business.
Yeah.
It involves fighting with people.
Right, pushing people down on the ground.
It involves getting them, introducing them to the pavement and slapping the handcuffs on.
Yeah.
All manner of unpleasantness.
Right.
But in order for the police to do it, they need public support, because they're shying away from it at the moment, because they feel they've got unsupportive management, they've got departments of professional standards that will throw them under the bus if they get a chance, and they don't feel there's media and public support.
Yeah.
So we, and I say we, the public, are going to need to support the police when they act properly, when they act robustly, and when they do it all in our name to try and keep the streets safe for us.
Yes, absolutely right. Speaking of which, how about this story in the Times? We mentioned it briefly yesterday because it was in the Sun yesterday. Times have picked it up. A drug dealer who absconded from prison spent nearly 9 years working and paying taxes under his own name before he was finally tracked down by the police.
Robert Fitzgerald, OK. Now, he was a man who clearly made some foolish decisions in his life.
Yep.
Because in 2014, he got 7 years and 4 months for conspiracy to supply cocaine.
Right.
Very foolish thing to do, Robert.
Yeah.
But very quickly, he must have started behaving himself in prison, because by 2016, he was already in Ford Open.
Right.
The open prison.
So
and you only go there.
Where you can basically wander around at will, right?
Day release and all that kind of stuff. And you are clearly behaving yourself within the prison system, often helping fellow prisoners, getting people to teach them how to read and write, and all kinds of stuff. So Robert's doing well.
Yeah.
But he decides to walk out of Ford Open and not return in 2016.
Yes.
What he then does is works for the next 9 years, filing his tax returns, paying his taxes in, guess what, his own name.
Yes.
And it was only after 8 or 9 years of filing these returns that somebody at HMRC did some form of check and realised that he was actually a wanted fugitive.
How does it take that long? Shouldn't there be some kind of bell that goes ring, ring, ring when somebody who is a criminal, a wanted criminal, a man who is supposedly on the run, shouldn't there be some kind of warning system?
The fact is, there are thousands upon thousands of people in this country that are wanted. And what happens when somebody absconds, or they don't turn up at court, for example, for their trial, and they're then, a warrant is issued, they get put on the police computer as wanted. Do you know what really happens in reality? The file comes back to the local NIC, gets filed and put away, because they don't have the time, and they don't have the resources.
They might find him if he gets arrested for something.
To do anything. Yeah, that's their hope, that he'll get arrested for something else further down the line, you see. But this is the quote that kind of really sums up contemporary modern policing for you, and it drives me mad. Sussex Police said the force explored all reasonable lines of inquiry when Fitzgerald first disappeared. Well, do you know what, Sussex Police? Try some unreasonable lines of inquiry, because they are probably more likely to deliver results.
Right. Also, when you see that kind of mealy-mouthed excuse, it means, actually, we didn't do anything at all.
Yeah.
You know, we pursued no lines of inquiry. We were hoping that he might come in and hand himself over to His Majesty's Constabulary. But, of course, when he didn't do that, we didn't have anything else to go. There's another story that's got my goat, and this is on page 28 of the Mail, about a disgraced human rights lawyer. You know, now this guy is an absolute belter. Philip Shiner, his name is. I mean, I could rename him with this name that sounds a bit like Shiner, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
He's 67 years old. He was struck off by the way for pursuing false torture and murder allegations against British soldiers. He basically was a one-man crusade trying to lock up British soldiers for committing war crimes in Iraq, right? But it now turns out that not only was he doing that, but his law firm basically was involved in all manner of fraud. In fact, he managed to remove £3 million in legal aid relating to those cases that he tried to bring against the government. And I can bet you a bottom dollar, if you like, that none of that money will have been returned to the Exchequer.
I am dancing in my chair at this story this morning. I know it's a bit early for dancing, but what the heck? Philip Shiner, you absolute shyster.
Absolutely right.
Who made
Philip
up
Shyster.
Who made up hundreds of allegations against the very best of us, our military. False allegations, not one of which was proven, and put all these false cases through tribunals and courts and copped a ton-load of money in the process, has now been found out. He was debarred, so he can't act as a solicitor anymore. And at the start of his trial, he's already pleaded guilty to 3 charges of fraud. And do you know what? Philip Shiner is going to jail. And no matter how long they send him inside for, as far as I'm concerned, for besmirching our military, it won't be long enough.
Absolutely right. Brilliant. Peter Bleksley, what can I say? A man that speaks for the people. We'll be back with more on Morning Glory.